Yeah, hello everyone. This video should help many people out there. In the past, I used Ableton essentially to draw out sketches and made music from it in the realm of soundtrack type of music. And Ableton is really great for that because you have all those thousands of tools, Max for Live and so on. So you can shape your sound design essentially. Many people refer to using Cubase for that, but these days, so in the past or in the recent year, I tried to use both worlds. So essentially draw out some notations to have the ability to eventually get on a scoring stage and record it with real instruments. And many people are struggling to shape a soundtrack in Ableton or even in Cubase, and translating those into playable notations. So what you can do artificially inside of Ableton or Cubase can often be not done with a real world instrument. So the approach that I followed is kind of opposite. So I essentially use Ableton to draw. I really love to do it right here because it's somehow simple. It's also the quantization is really, really straightforward. And in my humble opinion, way, way better than what you can do inside of Cubase. Of course, there's a Logic editor, so I have both pro versions of Ableton as well as Cubase. Right in here, that's the latest version, Cubase 14. And yeah, I really struggle to stream the sound from Dorico directly into Ableton. This was not possible in everything I've tried in the past. So why I do that? I do that essentially because I use Node Performer. Some of you may be familiar with Node Performer. It's some say an AI, which is able to read your notations, send it to Node Performer, to the Play engine, to this one, Node Performer 4, and it's essentially able to read and correctly play your notation based on pattern recognition and an algorithm which stands behind. And you can also connect it to a play engine, a so-called play engine. In my case, I use the BBC Symphony Orchestra Core, which has a really brilliant sound. And I can demonstrate it. I will pick this one and what we have here. This is just a very basic idea that I've drawn to check if everything is working. And yeah, that's the instruments we have. So I will load them. It will take some seconds because this library is quite huge. So, and in the meantime, I will talk what you else need to have in order to have this workflow going. So the biggest issue with Ableton as well as with Logic is that those tools are working with Midi Clock. And Dorico itself, according to the developers, isn't capable to send out Midi clock data as well as not timecode data. And in order to be able to send timecode data from Dorico to anywhere else, you need a plugin. And the plugin is called TXL Timecode. It's a $30 purchase, and it's really, really great. So you can define, it's a VST. You can drop it right in here. Make sure the SMPTE is off because it will only create a click sound. But in order to use it, you have to output your MIDI data. And for that, I use the U6 Midi Pro from CME. It's a very small but really great MIDI interface. It has a latency of about 1 millisecond or so on Windows. And I essentially put the output from the second port into the input of the second port, which enables you to loop the signal between apps. So with that method, I looped all ports, all 3 ports, and this enables you to send MIDI over to other applications, as well as from Ableton or Logic to Dorico and vice versa. So that's the first thing you need to have, the TXL timecode. And when you have that, especially when you're on Windows or when you're on Mac, you of course also have to be able to send the audio signal from Dorico to Ableton. And on Windows, there is a really great tool, which is Audio Matrix. It's a free tool where you can set up to 128 single audio channels, or as well as with 2 ASIO drivers or with 1 ASIO driver. It has an internal clock and so on, and you can use this to route everything, including my voice, your AirPods if you have some, as well as other devices. So I highly recommend you can use it 60 days or so, and then you should contribute some money to have it unplugged every feature. But it's really nice and really worth the price. So you can decide for yourself how much you want to spend. Yeah, this is the second method, or the second tool you need to have, or something similar on Mac. I know that you can route audio directly from one app to another. So on Windows, you have to have this, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to. This is for Windows at the moment, in my opinion, or at my knowledge, the only way to route audio signals between apps without any noticeable latency. And as what I like to show you now is, first of all, the result. So we have only one staff for the violins and the oboe and the flute. So just a short demonstration. I will not talk, but you can see the synchronization between Dorico and Ableton works almost perfectly. Not 100% on point. There's a slight latency involved because of the 512 samples I use for Dolby Atmos mastering, but it's working really great, especially when you want to score for film. So you can see it's in sync. 3 bar 4 right here, and now bar 5 we have a drop down in tempo here, and you see it's adapting perfectly. I will stop at 9. So the mark is almost exactly at 9, bar 9, and in Ableton I need to make it a little bit larger on the screen here. We are almost at 9, so it's almost identical. So maybe we can zoom in. Yeah, where was it? Ah, that's only my selection. So, but as you have seen, the output is in sync, almost in sync. So, but how is it achievable? The solution is, I would say, expensive. The benefit is really great. for for my personal workflow, Ableton is for drawing, sound shaping, sound design, the best tool in my opinion. Also, the recent updates in 12.1 really have increased the speed performance of Ableton. So there is not really a big gap anymore between Cubase and Ableton, especially when you want to score for film. So, and here comes the problem. When you use the TXL timecode, you can only export timecode. Ableton itself is only able to read Midi clock. I mean, not exactly right. Ableton can also read timecode, but when you want to have it follow Dorico, it has to be on point. And the issue is when you send the signal out, you cannot send out tempo changes. So in the written notation, you see I start with 92, and in bar 3, I switch over to 72. And because of the change, Ableton cannot catch up when you just stream the timecode from Dorico to Ableton. And how do I achieve that? The solution is simple, but somehow expensive. You need to export the tempo track. It's essentially just a MIDI file. So I will straight drop it into downloads. And I have exported it, and then you need Cubase. So that's the expensive part. You need Cubase. I'm not entirely sure if Cubase Pro is necessary. I think Cubase Artist is enough to have a tempo and a signature curve, yeah, able. And then you have to activate the external sync control right here on the bottom. Yeah, as you can see, the source is coming from Dorico. I choose the MIDI timecode because we have a timecode signal. And you have to activate the external sync. And I convert the signal in Cubase with this synchronization setup to be outputted as Midi clock, and I choose LoopMidi. It's a tool available for Windows, I guess for Windows only. On Mac, you have this built in with a function I can't recall, but many Mac users are familiar with how to send MIDI between apps. This is a lot easier on Mac. So on Windows, you need LoopMidi. That's an app you can run in the background, and you have a port. It's quite easy to use. You name it, you start it, or you put it into autoload. And here, see, right now, there's nothing on transfer. We already have sent over 3,000 bytes through it. And that's the port I define here. I use it and not the external MIDI device because this works better. The external MIDI device can sometimes conflict it by those many Daws that I have opened. So essentially right now 3 Daws. What's also quite important is the order on how you start those apps. The first DAW you start is Ableton, always Ableton. When you don't start it, it will not pick up the signal, or you probably have to restart your MIDI device in between. Then you start Cubase, and when you have clicked the button, you start Dorico. Dorico is last. So, yeah. Okay. How do we, so essentially, I have exported the tempo track for one reason. Dorico is not sending any tempo information. So it sends essentially only the time code when it starts and when it stops, but it is not able to send tempo changes. This is not possible at the moment according to the developers. So in order to fix that, you import the tempo track as a MIDI file. So you go into import MIDI file. So maybe I should reduce this or delete this. So just you see that it's working. You go and import MIDI file. No, I don't want to create a new project. And then where is my download folder? And here we have the flow with our tempo track. And as you can see, it has imported the correct tempo and the correct time signature. So it always creates a new instrument track. We can delete it with Shift Delete. And that's everything we need. We don't need any plugins whatsoever. In this workflow, Cubase is just converting to a very expensive $500 converting tool, but it works. So as you can see, it has correctly picked up the signal, and we activated external sync. The destination is LoopMidi. We can deactivate this. This is not necessary. But you also have to activate Midi Clock follows project position. This is highly important. When you don't check this box, it will not work. It just makes sure that it sticks to your tempo curve. So hit OK. And when you deactivate it, you see it's starting in sync. So I will reactivate external synchronization. I will start here, and you see it's starting in Cubase, and it's also transferring the signal to Ableton. And here comes another nice trick that I use. That's more for the Ableton users. I will play some notations, very basic, nothing special, nothing extraordinary, just a little bit playing around. So it's a little loud, sorry. I will make it a little quieter, or maybe here, that's better. So I have set up a sketch group, and here are my instruments. So I loaded the BBC instruments. As you can see here, the violin 1 with legato into an instrument rack. And the great thing about the instrument rack is you can go to the key tab and you can define on which notes this instrument can even be played, or on which key Ableton will recognize that you hit a button or a key. But this works not in the first place, so not on the instrument itself. So because of that, I created a second MIDI channel, which is only routing the post signal from the instrument rack into this MIDI channel. And this is only a helping method to clean up those ranges, because otherwise, maybe I should demonstrate this, or you will see it right in a couple of seconds. So I will start recording. Oh, of course, it cannot work because of the external signal. as you can see, the original signal has all my inputs. And those are those are the same for each of these instruments. The cleanup essentially cleans that up and makes sure the range that I have defined is exactly what I need. So I also recorded the Dorico output. What I forgot to mention the routing inside of Ableton. And this is very easy. So you only need to define your incoming port, which is LoopMidi. Here, define Midi Clock and check the track and sync. Yeah, maybe I only need to sync. I don't know. Maybe I should try. Yeah, you only need to check the sync check mark and it will sync. Don't even need to track. And yeah, that's it. So the other handy tool that I wanted to show you for the Ableton users is that you can very easily get those notations from the violin one into the violin one in Dorico. So, or maybe I should use the violin 2 just for demonstration purposes. So how can I do that? In Cubase, you can drag and drop those notations right in here. But this is not going to work with Ableton. So as you can see, nothing happens. In order to make it work, you may make a right click, export MIDI clip. You define a MIDI intermediate file. I call it exchange. You export it to go to your browser, into your download folder, wherever it is. Where is it? Oh my gosh. So need to make it larger. Downloads here. Here's my exchange MIDI file. And then you can drag and drop your MIDI directly right in here. And as you can see, it worked. For the entire part. Of course, you need to clean up. You can do it in Ableton. You can do it as well in Dorico or inside of Cubase. My method is always to select those parts, which is really, I mean, sorry, Cubase developers, sorry, Steinberg, but the MIDI editor in Ableton is so much better than anything that you have developed so far in Cubase. So I can essentially select notations only by velocity very easily. Those blocks are hanging over one each other is a problem. I cannot work with that. It's a problem, to say it diplomatic. So I go here and go to the quantization. I will hit here and there, and maybe, yeah, those are fixed. And here we do it the same. Of course, it will not sound exactly the same like before, but let us look into Dorico. Of course, look at that. This is awesome. Okay, maybe I should clean up that. And yeah, at the end of the day, all what you can get from Node Performer and Dorico is one audio signal, because Dorico isn't able to send out the audio for each individual instrument. So you essentially have, to think about the workflow, and the workflow is that you have a preview. So I defined an audio track right in here. I will get it from outside, from channel 3 and 4. This is the same audio channel that I defined here in the output, 3 and 4. and I route it in. So when I play here, or when I do the playback, you see the signals here. What I also did is I made a little reverb, convolution reverb preset for myself. It's very easy to use. So we're with a preview, positioning, and essentially simulating based on the Vienna Hall. But of course, I can choose all the other instrument positions too. But this is something you have to build for yourself. So yeah, I use the preview just for previewing the result. Later on, when your track is finished, you go to the File tab and hit Audio Export. You checkmark these players. Here you have everything, and then you go to your folder of choice. So I will define it here, stamp, for example, and hit the OK button. And Dorico Node Performer will now export all the audio tracks, all the instruments. Of course, I will cancel this. You know the workflow. At the end of the day, you open your download folder and you go into stamps. Here you have the oboe, the flute, the piccolo, and so on. You select all of them. Oh, I love two monitor setup, but for recording, this is quite unpractical. So, and here you drag and drop it with holding control, the control button on the left control, and then you release, and all of your instruments are there. So I replay it. See, here are the instruments. Maybe I should crank this up so it looks better. And yeah, that's essentially the workflow. So you use Cubase only for converting the timecode signal to Midi clock, and then you can stream it directly with a different Midi channel into Logic or into any other DAW. It works cross-board when your DAW isn't capable of using those signals. So Midi clock is the most accurate synchronization when you have the tempo curve in another tool. So sending the tempo signal from Cubase to Ableton will not fix it. So Ableton would not be able to catch up the correct tempo at the time. So you have to use Midi clock. And Logic, essentially to my knowledge, is working on Midi clock too. So this will also help Logic users. So at the end of the day, I hope this was really a help for you. I was trying different methods. I invested over $1,000 just to figure out a way out to get this done. So maybe you can share this video. I know in the Dorico forum, a couple hundred people are looking for this method. And to the developers, I would like to say Dorico, Cubase, as well as Ableton are really great DAWs. Each one of those DAWs has their advantages, and I see them, I use them all free. So for different purposes. So Cubase, for example, for pitching vocals and so on. This is really great. So to have vocals in line with the scale of your music. And what I would like to see, especially from Steinberg, is that Dorico is able to export each individual instrument on a separate audio channel to make it easier to not have this problematic workflow, this, sorry to say, outdated workflow. And on the other side, to think about being able to send out Midi clock as well as timecode directly from Dorico. I think this would greatly enhance the value of Dorico, because I talked to so many people in the past having the issues with this workflow, wanting to have the ability to use Node Performer, but this issue of streaming real-time data to any other DAW is really a roadblock for many, many people, because the best orchestration sound from Dorico worth nothing when your soundtrack don't have vocals, don't have the ability to use sound design from Cubase or from Ableton or from Logic. So sound design is a very key feature these days. You guys have seen it in the Dune soundtrack from Hans Zimmer. So sound design is really essential, and you need to find a way to make it possible. So with that being said, I'm really happy about those 3 DAWs. I know Cubase is now, for my personal workflow, just a converting tool or an pitching tool, Varia audio tool. But that's okay for me. So I will purchase or update these 3 DAWs also in the future for different purposes. And this will probably rent as the only solution right now to get Dorico signals to Logic. So when you seriously need this workflow, you have to purchase Cubase Artist or Pro. I think Artist is the best. And then you have a really, really great time. So highly recommend. And I hope you have fun. Keep a like. Maybe share this video when you find it helpful. And yeah, I wish everyone a very nice Christmas. And yeah, a happy transition to 2025. Bye.